Hi everyone! We're going to continue talking about the Good Samaritan and the parable that Jesus told in Luke 10. But before we get into that, I just was reminded of this memory of my oldest, Ace. He's 6 now, but he has always had a super high pain tolerance. And he also was pretty speech delayed. He's really coming along now, but at the time, this story happened when he was 3, and so he really was not talking much at all. And so he was never the kid that would fall down and then come up to you for a kiss on his boo-boo and make you feel all better. He just kept on going. So there would be so many times where I would be giving him a bath before bed, and I would look at his arm, and he's got this big scrape on his arm, or he's got this big bruise on his leg. I'm like, what in the world? When did that happen? What happened? And just like, well, he never let us know, and so it just would be a day of surprises. And there's this one time where he was, I took him outside, and then JJ is my second son, and he was 1 at the time, and so we went out, and he's found this big bag of chalk, and so he was excited, and we were on the deck, and so he's drawn huge circles all over the deck and small circles, and then that took him to the other side of the deck, and he kind of placed himself down and had a bunch of chalk, so he was busy, and then I stayed by JJ because he was 1, and he just is sneaky, and he just kept, he has this tendency to taste test the different colors of chalk, which are all gross, but he thought they were good, so I needed to just be there and smack it out of his mouth when it was time, and so, they're having a good time, and some time goes by, and then I realize, it's lunchtime, so I call over to Ace, okay, it's time to clean up, and I'm kind of cleaning up, and I'm trying to strip down JJ because he's covered in this chalk dust that I don't want to bring in the house, so I'm telling Ace, okay, time to pick up, and, I look over, and he starts cleaning up, and then when I look over again, I realize he's cleaned everything around him, but he's just still sitting where he is. I'm like, okay. And I'm trying to undress JJ, which is like undressing Jello. So he's just kind of flailing, and he wants to keep playing, and there's just this cloud of chalk dust that's all over. So I'm just, paying attention to Ace, but yelling over to him, hey, come over here. Come help us over here, bud. We got to clean up all the chalk so we can get to lunch. And so I'm calling him, and usually he's really good about helping clean up, but this time he's just sitting there. And he's like, at first I'm like, maybe he doesn't hear me. So I'm saying it louder, like, okay, Ace, come on over. And, JJ's starting to get upset because he's hungry. And finally I look over, and I'm like, okay, he's not moving. Like, is he just ignoring me? So I pick up JJ, and I'm frustrated. I'm like, come on, let's get going. And when I get over there, I start talking to Ace. Hey, Ace, did you hear me? I'm calling you. Come on over. And then I look down, and I realize he can't come over because his hand is stuck between the floorboards, and his little fingers got stuck in the slats of the deck. And so he's just sitting there and like looking at me and not moving. And then I realize he cannot move, and he's not listening. He is listening to me, but he's not letting me know that he is stuck in the floorboards right now. And so I feel so bad. And so, I put JJ down, and I wedged his little fingers out, which was not easy, and kissing his finger, and like, I'm so sorry, buddy, I didn't realize. And I had no idea because he wasn't telling me, because at the time he couldn't really talk, but he also wasn't visibly upset, so I just assumed that he just wasn't listening to me and was just engrossed in his drawing, or just didn't want to get up. And so I was getting upset with him, and in reality he could not come over because he was stuck. And it just reminded me that the only way, he's not going to come to me, so the only way that I would have known that something was happening and that he needed help was if I went over to him. And I feel like that story really goes with the parable of the Good Samaritan and what we're going to talk about today. So let's go to Luke 10. We're going to start in verse 30 and just read a couple of the verses. If you remember, so this is Jesus telling a story. He's been at, you're supposed to love your neighbor, and so this person in the crowd is like, who is my neighbor? And trying to justify himself, like, who do I need to love and who do I not really need to care about? And so Jesus tells this story. So he says, Jesus replied, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, And he fell among robbers, who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. And we're going to stop there. Who knows why the priest and the Levite passed on the other side? This is a story that Jesus made up for teaching purposes, right? So it's unrealistic for us to try to dive into every unwritten detail and try to pick Jesus' brain, and there's a lot in here that we can pull from, but it's just not realistic for us to know every detail, because that's just not what the parable was for. But there is an important cultural piece that everyone in the crowd would have understood already, that today when we're reading it in our own culture, we are easily not going to pick up on it. So I want to talk about that. The important piece is that the Levite and the priest were two different people that were called by God into the positions that they were. And a really important piece is that God had commanded them to not come in contact with a dead body. If they did come in contact with a dead body, there was a whole process of purification before they could continue doing the duties that they were supposed to do in their job and in their lifestyle. And you can look into that more. I looked it up. It's in Leviticus 22 and Numbers 19 if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty. But it's just important for us to know that they were commanded by God to not come in contact with a dead body, okay? And so the fact that they had distanced themselves and went to the other side of the road when they saw this man laying there was not an issue that they were maybe following what God had said, right? So if they're saying, "Ooh, that's a dead man, we're going to go on the other side," then that's what they should have done. But the problem was that they didn't even have the compassion to go over to the man to see if he was okay, to see if he truly was dead, right? They were, the Bible says that he fell among robbers who stripped him, beat him, and they left him half dead. And so, I don't know, when I think half dead, then he must look dead, right? He's not calling out for help. He's not able to move. He's just laying there. And so the piece in this is that the Levite and the priest, they assumed this man's situation from afar. And because of that, they didn't go up to see him, to see what was really going on. They just assumed what was going on based on what they could see, and then skirted around the situation, where the Samaritan walked to him. And when he walked to him, he saw and had compassion on this man and saw that he really was in need and that he was not actually dead, but he was alive but needed help. And so I think a lot of times it's easy for us to notice that something is off with someone in our life. Maybe they physically look off, unkept, or just look appearance different than they usually are, or they're not really keeping in contact, not staying connected with the group that they usually do. They seem to be really pulling away from people, or they're not showing up to stuff that they usually come to and they're a part of. It's easy for us to pick up on, okay, something's not right. But then we have to make a decision where if we see, okay, something's not right, just like the Levite and the priest, or even me when I was looking at Ace, something's not right. I'm just getting frustrated with him because I'm assuming what's going on without really going over and seeing the actual situation of what's going on. The priest and the Levite walked around him because they didn't really know, you can assume they didn't see what was really going on. We do the same thing with people in our lives. If we see someone who, we're noticing, something's off, something's not right, but we get uncomfortable with going up to them for a lot of reasons. Maybe we don't feel like we know how to help them, and so why would we put ourselves in that situation? Or maybe a lot of times for me, I don't want to offend the person. You ever been told, like, oh, you look tired? Like, don't tell somebody that. Like, okay, I look tired, thank you. But what if I got a really good night of sleep and you just told me I look tired? That's terrible. But that's beside the point. But, if we see someone is having a hard time and we kind of skirt around it because we don't really want to get into the situation, or we don't really know the situation, and we just assume maybe they would be offended if we brought it up, or they wouldn't really want our help anyway, and we go around. We're the same as the priest and the Levite going around, right? But truly hurting people who are down, they're very, very rarely going to be able to walk up to us and let us know that they need help. We can sit around and wait all we want, well-meaningly, for someone to come to us, and we are here to help you. We want to come around you. When you come to us, we will jump and do anything for you. But the people who are really hurting are the ones who are knocked down, and they don't have the energy to go up to someone, or they can't pick up the pieces and fix themselves, because if they could, they would have already, right? And so, imagine if I decided, Ace is on the deck, and, he's still over there, and I decided, okay, I'll just give him some space. He would have been stuck. I would hope eventually he would ask for help, but at that point it might have been too late. He'd be really hurting, he'd be swollen, it'd be hard to get him out of there. We can't love each other as we're supposed to, as Jesus loved us, as Jesus is teaching us how to love each other, if we're not willing to go walk up to someone, to get into their lives, to ask them, hey, are you doing okay? Because you seem really off. What's going on? We've got to be willing to love the person more than we're worried about what they're going to think of us. And that's such a hard thing to do. But if you truly love somebody, you kind of stop caring about, well, they're going to think I'm weird if I go walk up to them and ask if I can help them, or walk up to them and say, hey, what's going on? Something's off. It's time for us to start truly walking towards one another and loving one another and stepping into each other's lives. Something that really stuck out to me is that the three men in this story, the Levite, the priest, and the Samaritan, all three of them took action. All three of them saw this man laying in their path, and they took action, but the difference was whether they walked towards him or they walked away from him. And we always come into that situation of, I notice that something's up with you. Maybe I know you really well, and that's why I know. Maybe I heard from someone else that something's going on, and that's why I know. It doesn't really matter. When you look at someone and know something's going on, now you've got to decide, am I going to walk towards them and into what they've got going on, into loving them, or am I going to walk around them and hope someone else comes along, or justify however I want to justify that I didn't help them? We can make the decision, but regardless, whichever way we go, we're making the decision toward or away. And the Samaritan, he's the only one that walked toward, and he's the only one that saw what was going on. He's the only one that knew the wounds that this guy had. He's the only one that knew, maybe he didn't know exactly what he needed, but he knew he needed help, and he knew that he needed it now. Where the priest and the Levite, they didn't even know. They could have thought he was dead. They could have thought he was almost dead, so it wouldn't matter anyway. Again, the details, we don't know those details. But for our purposes and for us learning how to just love one another and take care of one another, this is Jesus showing us in this story and also in his life how he walked towards us. Right, just like we have talked in other videos that, we are the beaten man on this path. We are the ones helpless. We are the ones that, even if we wanted to with all our heart to mend this relationship between us and God, we can't, because sin and wrongdoing and all of our shortcomings just broke the relationship between us and him. And so Jesus was the only one who could walk towards us and mend that relationship, just like the Samaritan was the only one who could walk towards the beaten man. The beaten man can't stand up and walk towards him. It has to be him, the Samaritan, coming to him, and it had to be Jesus coming and helping us and coming and mending our relationship. And he did that in the perfect way. He came. He lived a sinless life, the perfect life for us. And then he was killed and died and conquered death, and so that he could bridge the gap between us and him. And now we have this chance to have this relationship with God. And there is something that really stuck out with me when I was thinking about our relationship with God and how Jesus did everything for us, right? And all that's left for us to do is to see it, recognize it, and accept it, and thank him, and just live our life following the way that he lays out for us in the Bible. And the piece that really stuck out to me that I haven't really noticed before was, we've read this twice already, but was the man fell among the robbers, who stripped him, beat him, and departed, leaving him half dead. They stripped him of everything. And so if you are hurting, or if the thing that's holding you back from maybe a first-time relationship with Jesus, or even talking with Jesus for the first time in a long time, if the thing that's holding you back is that you have nothing to offer, well, good news. Because even if you felt like you had something to offer, you don't. And Jesus came to us knowing we had nothing to offer him. Right? The Samaritan didn't go up to the beaten man expecting the beaten man to have all this stuff to offer him. No. He went because he cared for him, he had compassion on him, and he loved him, and he took care of him. Jesus knows everything about us. We have nothing to offer. Right? Nothing that he doesn't have. And so he didn't come just so that he could meet us halfway and we do all this work to meet him here. He knows we have nothing to offer. We are just as stripped and beaten as this man on the path. But it doesn't matter. What we bring does not matter, because it's nothing. And he did everything for us. He has mended our relationship. And so I just want to encourage you, if you are feeling not good enough to have a relationship with Jesus, feeling like you need to fix things before you can talk with Jesus, feeling like even the feeling of, oh, you know what, this day I did not pray enough, I did not read my Bible, I did not do these things, I wasn't good enough, I fell apart, I fell into the sin that I have always fallen into. And so at the end of the day, I don't feel like I can talk to God tonight. Stop. It's not true. It's just not, because even on your best day, you don't have anything to offer. On your worst day, you most definitely don't have anything to offer. But Jesus came when you had nothing to offer, and he came with everything. He came to save you. He came to love you. And now you get to have a relationship with him. So I just want to pray with you. If you're feeling like you feel that tug in your heart that you want to have a relationship with Jesus, and you're done with the excuse of I have nothing to offer, because now you see you've never had anything to offer. None of us have anything to offer, and it doesn't matter, because Jesus came and gave everything for us. He did everything that had to be done in order for us to have a relationship with him, because he loves us, because he had compassion on us, and he gave his life for us. I just want to pray with you wherever you're at in this. I think we can all fall into feeling not good enough sometimes, and so then we don't feel like we deserve to talk to Jesus. It's the same thing as if my kid is I don't know, he lies to me one day, and he's not nice to his sister, and he's had a really rough day. If at the end of that day he can't even look at me in the eye, and he feels like he can't talk to me, well, that breaks my heart, because I love him. Right? I don't love what he did. I don't love the bad things he did. Jesus does not love the sin that's in our lives, but he loves us. And we love him back by just calling him king of our life and saying, you know what, I'm going to follow what you have laid out for my life to be. So let me just pray with you. Jesus, we have nothing to offer. We've never had anything to offer, and yet you came and you saved us. And God, I just pray for the person who does not have a relationship with you and has felt like they need to be a better person, they need to fix their lives before they can even think about coming closer to you. Open their eyes to reality, to the truth that you have already come towards them and you are already waiting for them, God. Thank you that you have already done everything that was needed, everything necessary and beyond for us to have a relationship with you. And I pray that you just strengthen our eyes to see that we have a right relationship with you when we call you Lord of our life, when we call you Savior and we follow you. Amen.